Okay, I'm just about to broadcast live now. Okay, we're all good.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is entitled The Survival Guide to COVID-19 for Hospitality, for the hospitality sector. So for me, this was a really important webinar to have, as the hospitality and retail sector are a really crucial part of the offer of Bath and North East Somerset for both visitors and also for residents. This is an important sector to the council, and it is vital that the sector gets the appropriate help and support that it needs for economic recovery. Having said that, we know that not every single business is going to survive, and I do think it's important that we recognise that somewhat unpalatable truth. But the council can provide help and support, information and guidance, and this is the purpose of this webinar. So first off, I'd like to introduce you to the panel. My name is Dina Romero. I'm the leader of Bath and North East Somerset Council. Also on the panel with me today, I have Dr. Bruce Lawrence, who's the Director of Public Health for the Council. I have Rob Dawson, who is the Enterprise Officer for the Council, and also Kath Brown and Suzanne McCutcheon, who are team managers in the Health and Environment section of the Council as well. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to pass on to Dr. Lawrence to give us a bit of an update on where we are at the moment, and sort of some relevant information, I guess, on how the pandemic is affecting this region. So, Bruce.
Thank you very much. Hi, yes, I'm Bruce Lawrence. I'm the Director of Public Health, and I won't give you a lot of figures, but just a very few to set the scene. As you probably know, Bath and North East Somerset and the Southwest generally has so far had, you could say, a relatively good pandemic in terms of comparison with the rest of the country. But we have lost 90 residents have died of COVID. That's a little over half of those in our care homes. We have a confirmed 341 cases today, which probably means that maybe even up to 10 times that many of people in Baines have actually had COVID, but that's still a tiny minority, which is good that most people have not been exposed and not become ill. But it also means, of course, that we still have a population that's at risk, as the whole country does, and very much so here. So I suppose my optimistic take is that because we've worked hard in Baines and because we've done well, I'm hopeful we can continue to do well and to control this, but only if we remain vigilant and careful. And I mean, just my personal experience, having gone into a few different venues now, people are taking great care to the people running restaurants and bars, taking great care to really do the right thing and shop. So I've been impressed, and I think if we continue to act in that way and the public supports that, I'm hopeful we will do well. Of course, it's very important. Part of Bath's lifeblood is the people that come in from outside, and they'll come from all over the country. And even more important to maintain vigilance, to keep a good social distancing, to do all we can. And if we do that, I'm hopeful we can keep premises open, we can keep our business life thriving. I really am hopeful, but it is down to all of us. So well done so far. Keep up the good work is the nutshell message of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I think that's really, really helpful. And also it's really good to, I guess, just to emphasize that point that it's down to all of us to make sure that, you know, we don't have a second spike. So we need to play our part in making sure that that doesn't happen. I'm now going to ask Kath and Suzanne to be a bit of a double act and to give a bit of an update from the point of view of health and environment. So if I pass on to you, Kath, I think you've also got some slides,
Yes.
which I think hopefully one will be appearing any moment now.
And there we go, as if by magic. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Catherine Brown. I'm a manager in the Public Protection Service here at the Council, and I manage the licensing and the environmental protection part of that service. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We really wanted an opportunity for people to ask us questions and tell us about how they're getting on. I think I'd like to start by saying thank you to those of you who are opening your businesses, looking at the guidance and being successful in your opening. I have been out and about together with members of my team. We've been visiting premises, we've been talking to licensees, and we've had some really good conversations. Generally, we've been really impressed with the attitude that people have taken and the effort they have made to look at the guidance and try and achieve the best compliance that they can. So thank you for that. We do appreciate it. You'll see on the slide that I've put some links to our web pages where we're putting all the information relating to licensing at the moment. And I would really encourage you, if you've got a query or anything, to get in contact with us at the web address there, licensing@bathurst.gov.uk. What we are finding is that there isn't one size that fits all. Every business has got unique circumstances, every business has got different needs, wants to do different things, and it's a good way if we can come and talk to you to understand what you want to do. And certainly we are coming from a position of trying to make that happen for you, to get you open and to get you trading again. As I say there, this is very much a collective effort. It's I understand how challenging it's been for you. As regulators, it's challenging for us as well. The guidance and the legislation is being updated very frequently. For example, I was in a webinar last week and there was a barrister there and he was saying, I'm telling you about this guidance, but by the end of the day, it will be superseded. So things are changing fast and we're all having to try to keep up with that. I think my phrase of the moment is pragmatism. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take a pragmatic approach. For those of you who are licensees, you will know that licensing can be a very prescriptive regime. And the circumstances presented to us by the pandemic means that we've got to take a more pragmatic approach, but while still being mindful of those licensing objectives. So an example of that might be, many of you may have conditions on your premises license about when you've got to close outdoor areas, if you've got to keep doors shut after a particular time for reasons to prevent public nuisance. But the guidance will talk about increasing ventilation in your premises and keeping doors and windows open. So we've had quite a few queries from licensees because of the tension and potential conflict there. And we're taking the pragmatic approach of saying, okay, we're allowing this to happen and we'll see if problems arise, we'll come back and we'll address those. And I hope, you know, businesses are appreciative that we're trying to do that. I was going to finish this little introduction by just touching on the issue of pavement licenses, which are currently being discussed in Parliament. They're being debated in the House of Lords today, and hopefully very soon the legislation will be passed to enable these to become live. This is actually a very permissive licence. As you will know, the government have introduced these to enable businesses to use outdoor areas and to be able to put what they term removable furniture on public highway. It has taken longer to get through Parliament than we anticipated, but we haven't been dragging our heels. We have readapted our licensing process, probably in the space of about a week, to enable these license applications to be received. We are out and about talking to businesses now what they want to do. My officers have been out and about this afternoon doing visits to premises. We are taking the view of trying to get these applications going as quickly as possible. So if people are really keen to get started, we're using the existing tables and chairs permitting regime, starting people on that process and then switching them over to pavement licenses if that's what they want to do. Obviously, the beauty about the pavement license regime is that there is only a 5 working day consultation period as opposed to the 28-day consultation period with tables and chairs. So again, if you've got ideas about how you want to use an area outside your business, do come and speak to us, and we will see what we can do to try and make that happen for you. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Suzanne now, who manages the health and safety and food safety teams and trading standard teams. And it's her officers that have been going out and about trying to enforce the COVID regulations and the guidance.
Thank you, Kath. As Kath has said, you know, we do appreciate your time coming along this evening to listen to us. We know that you are all very busy, and you know, so we do appreciate the time that you're sparing for us. I just wanted to go through a couple of things that I'm trying to cover this evening. The first one is about the role of environmental health and trading standards. We're always asked, are we going to be enforcing the legislation? And yes, we have a role to do that, but we also want to support and guide you through that legislation. So we would ask you to contact us and speak to us if you've got any queries, rather than just dreading a visit from us, because obviously, hopefully we can sort out any issues that you have and help you to comply with the legislation. And then secondly, I just want to go through some of the queries that have already been raised with us when we've been visiting premises. So Mark, can I have the next slide, please? So this slide just gives you an indication of the legislation that we are working towards. The Health Protection Coronavirus number 2 regulations, that's the one that actually tells us which premises are now allowed to open and which ones are allowed to trade. That first came into effect on the 3rd of July, closely followed by an amendment to those regulations on the 10th of July. And then last Friday, we had the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions regulations, which gave local authorities power to impose local lockdown measures if there is a local outbreak. I have to say, and as Kath has quite rightly mentioned, we're getting these regulations usually on a Friday afternoon at about 3:30, that come into force on, you know, from midnight that night, and the statutory guidance that goes with these regulations tends to come in a week or so later. So please bear with us if we can't answer all your questions straight away. We are doing our best. So those regulations do enable the council to serve prohibition notices or fixed penalty notices where businesses are open and contravening those regulations. However, where businesses are allowed to reopen and have to start implementing the COVID safeguarding measures, so for example, social distancing and contact tracing, we're using the health and safety at work legislation and the management of work regulations to ask for things like COVID risk assessments. And if officers feel that there is a risk to public safety or to the safety of the employees, then we have powers to serve prohibition notices or improvement notices under the Health and Safety at Work Act. Now, we don't want to do that. We want to work with you to help you resolve these issues before it gets that far. Next slide, please. I'll go on to some of the questions that we've had so far. So the first thing is social distancing. What does it mean for my business? You may remember that the government introduced the 2 meters social distancing rule, and then introduced a lesser 1 meter plus, so that restaurants and bars could allow members of the public in the premises at smaller distances. However, it's not 1 meter, it's 1 meter plus. So that means that you have to put in additional measures if you are reducing the distance from 2 meters down to 1. So the sorts of things that we are looking at are how chairs are positioned. So if you are back to back, that can be deemed to be a measure. If you're putting up screens between tables, that's an additional measure. Or if you've got additional seating outside, which I will come on to again shortly. So does social distancing relate to outdoor seating? And the answer is yes. Kath has mentioned about the pavement licenses, and many premises already have tables and chairs licenses and have tables and chairs outside. Licensed premises have also been encouraged to provide tables and chairs in car park areas. But if you're doing that, you still need to make sure that they comply with the social distancing requirements, and that tables should really be 2 meters apart. And if they can't be 2 meters apart, you've got to put something else in place to minimize the risk of spread of COVID. It is your responsibility as a landlord to manage social distancing. You've got a duty as well if you're running a shop and you've got people queuing outside. It's your responsibility to manage that, to make sure that people are keeping a safe distance apart while they're waiting to gain access to your business. And certainly for the licensed trade and restaurants, what we found is many people are taking bookings online to make sure that their customers are not having to wait outside and that they are guaranteed a table. And this also has an additional benefit. Can the next slide, please? If you're taking bookings online, that will help with your next responsibility, which is contact tracing. So we've been asked, do I have to collect my customers' contact details? Well, the answer is yes. At least you have to collect the details of the person who is making the booking, and they should be able to provide you with the details of everybody else in their party. So why do we require that information? Well, this is to link into the national test and trace system. If somebody was found to be positive for COVID and that they had been to that premises on that day, near the time that you were there, we have a responsibility to work with Public Health England to contact all the people that were also in the premises at that time to make sure that they're able to get a test to see if they've been, if they're positive for COVID. So you have to keep contact details for 21 days. That information should be kept confidential, and the only person that you should give that information to is to somebody from Public Health England if they contact you from the track and trace system. You may also know that recently there was an outbreak at Burnham, and the licensee there actually contacted all the customers themselves. You don't need to do that, and we would strongly urge you not to do that. We would ask you to provide that information to the test and trace system. And the reason for that is we're then looking at other checks and investigations into who those other people have come into contact with. And by doing that, by contacting the test and trace system, we can do that effectively. And so we would ask you, as I say, not to contact your customers directly. Next slide, please. And I think the last thing, and probably the most important thing for you to do, is a risk assessment. The risk assessment has to be done in conjunction with the requirements of the management at work regulations. So that sort of prescribes the way in which you carry out your risk assessment. And it should cover the risks to your staff as well as to members of the public. So when you're looking at your staff, look at things not just in the public domain, but in the kitchen areas, in the areas where they might take their breaks. Make sure that they are maintaining social distancing, even when they're not working in the restaurant. Make sure they've been provided with the correct public personal protective equipment. Make sure they wear it. Make sure they understand how to wear it. Recently, we visited one premises, and one of the members of staff had a face mask on, but he didn't have it over his nose, which actually, defeats the object of it, really. But he genuinely said, well, the problem I have is that if I do wear that, because I wear glasses, I find my glasses are steaming up and I can't see. So it might be that you need to provide something else other than a face mask. It might be a full face shield that is required. So you've got to provide PPE that is correct for the work environment and safe to protect the safety of your staff, as well as the safety of the members of the public who come into your premises. There's an awful lot more information out there. There is an awful lot of guidance. There's a lot of information available on the Health and Safety at Work website and on the gov.uk website. And also there's many links of those to those areas of legislation on our food safety pages on the Baines website. And so I would urge you to look at those. And so that's it, thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. I'd now like to ask Rob Dawson, if you could just give a sort of a bit of a flavour of the work that he's been involved in.
Thanks, Dina. My name's Rob Dawson and I work in the Business and Skills team at Baines Council. Our role really is to support the inclusive economic growth of businesses in Bath and North East Somerset. And our roles since COVID really sprang up in the area has been to coordinate the support to our business community. So we've done that through a variety of means. One of our main areas of work has been developing a universal business support service, whereby anyone looking to start a business or has an existing business can gain free expert support from business consultants. So that could take the form of digital skills training. It could be looking at quite emergency responses, so looking at cash flow, cost minimization, but also looking at your business planning. So if your initial business strategy has been compromised, what are your alternative options for generating income? What's a potential exit strategy? So we've worked with over 1,000 businesses so far since March this year on that program, and we'd urge businesses that if they are interested in taking up that support, to contact our team. We do have a website where we're coordinating a lot of our support, as well as business news, information, and some of the information that Suzanne and Kath have been talking about. We're also detailing that on our website, which is investinbath.co.uk. A couple of examples of what our businesses have been doing in response to COVID. So they've been looking at opportunities to develop new business models. We've worked with a arts business, an off license as well, in developing their online trading. They've not previously done it, and they've had great success with online trade. We worked with a cafe on upselling techniques. We're quite conscious of the fact that in terms of footfall and numbers of covers have been compromised by social distancing measures. So it's looking at ways and how each business can increase their sales per customer. And we've also, as part of the Universal Business Support Service, there have been several webinars on subjects like search engine optimization. So you can make sure you're on the first page of Google results or other search engine results. You can get free expert support in your Instagram and other social media pages too. Now, one other subject I'd like to talk about is skills and employee skills. So our team's also working with some skills providers on free programs for employees too. Now that could include digital skills training, work on infection control, hygiene in the workplace, also customer services. So these programs can be quite reactive too. So we are engaging with retailers and the hospitality sector, saying, what skills are you requiring from your staff at the moment? And then going back to the providers to put on those courses. So if there are any skills gaps you're currently experiencing and would like some free support in filling those gaps, we can help you with that. And the last thing I wanted just to bring up now is that our team is working on some, rather than a general universal business support program, we're also looking at some targeted sector-specific support. Now that will be working with the business community, but also looking at how we can promote different areas of Bath and North East Somerset to tourists, to also the local resident population too, to increase your business profile and bring in more customers into your business. So if you'd like to find out any more information about that, I'd ask you to visit our website, investinbath.co.uk. Thank you. I'll hand back to Dina.
Thank you very much, Rob. What I'd like to do now is we've been sent in a few questions, and I'm not going to necessarily read out all of the questions verbatim because there's some that are quite similar. So what I'm going to do is sort of look at the general themes and get some and have a bit of a discussion, or just simply some answers on those, if that's the more appropriate way forward. So the first question that I wanted to pick up actually was one that says, does the council recognise the importance of the visitor economy to jobs and livelihoods? And I hope that you would agree that we absolutely do. So we know that the value of to the economy is something like £500 million. So we do absolutely value and recognise the importance to our local economy, not just in the city of Bath, but across the whole of Bath and North East Somerset. So the question, makes some other points, but it does raise, I think, something which has become a bit of a rumour going around at the moment, that around the futures of both Visit Bath and also Destination Bristol. So what is being proposed is that both of these destination management organisations will merge their back offices, but we are not selling Visit Bath to Bristol. Also, I don't think Bristol is being sold to us either, but they are being merge together to work together, but both will retain a front-facing part. So I just wanted to clear that up first before we moved into some of the other questions that are more specific about hospitality and retail. So one question, Kath, that's come up is, I guess the issue around the legislation that's coming forward, particularly about the tables and chairs license changes that are happening. Some references we've made in a number of questions to why we're waiting for legislation and why we're not just going ahead and doing it as I believe they are doing in Cardiff. So it'd be useful to get your take on what's happening around that legislation.
Okay, thank you, Dina. I think Cardiff, they're under a different set of legislation. They're under the Welsh Assembly, aren't they? So I can appreciate they may be doing things differently. However, we have chosen to stay within a regulatory framework to be consistent with all the other licence applications that we process, and working within that regulatory framework, you know, offers support and reassurance for everybody involved in that, and protection really as well, both for the applicant and also people using tables and chairs or any other furniture on the highway. So that's the decision the council has taken. I'm in regular contact with colleagues from other neighbouring authorities, and they are tending to do same thing as well. The point I would make is that just because we're working within the regulatory framework doesn't mean to say that that is a barrier to getting things done or getting things done quickly or expediting applications. As I said, we're in conversations with quite a few businesses at the moment, helping them put their applications together. Some of them have already started down the existing tables and chairs permitting route, and we've agreed with them that we will move them to a pavement licence when that legislation comes in, and we will not be charging an extra fee for that. So again, I come back to the word of being pragmatic and trying to process these applications and get them in place as soon as we can.
And so another related question, is this sense that somehow we're doing this because we want the extra revenue? So Kath, could you actually talk about, you know, how much extra revenue will the council be getting for processing extra requests for tables and chairs?
Well, I guess that's dependent on the number of applications that we receive, but I would say that the existing fee for a tables and chairs permit is £134. We will be charging £100, so we will not be fully recovering our costs. So this is being subsidised, and obviously the council has its own financial situation to think about. But it comes back to that thing of working collectively, isn't it? And everybody playing their part. So we are providing a subsidised fee for the pavement licences. And
this is because government has set the maximum fee at £100, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. So thank you for that, Kath. And I appreciate that some will say, you know, why should they pay this when they haven't had any income for, you know, 3 or 4 months? And I guess, you know, what we are seeking to do is to enable them to perhaps recoup some of those revenues as quickly as possible by making sure that we can act quickly and make sure that any new licenses are in place for people.
Absolutely, and with the pavement licence regime, that is really possible because the consultation period is only 5 working days. So in theory, within a fortnight, you could have your removable furniture outside and accepting guests.
Thank you, Kath. Okay, so I think this is a question for you, Suzanne, and it's about face masks. So, you know, so we've seen quite a lot of in the news recently about, you know, whether face masks would be worn or not be worn. And so the question actually is, how does obligatory face mask wearing in shops as of Friday affect guests in restaurants?
Well, thank you, Dina. Well, I think that the main thing there is the difference between a shop and a restaurant. Yes, customers who visit shops, retail shopping, have to wear face masks, but there is an exemption for restaurants, cafes, and bars, because obviously there's an expectation that you're there to eat and to drink, and therefore if wearing a face mask would not be suitable. But that means that the staff themselves have to wear masks, but not necessarily the customers.
And actually, this might be a useful point to bring Bruce in. What are the advantages of wearing a face mask?
That's been an evolving story for a very long time. I think the advantages seem to be a lot that they help prevent, if you have a mask on and you would inadvertently be infected, if you're wearing it, it prevents other people getting the illness. If you aren't ill and other people are breathing at you, it may be a small improvement in your chances of avoiding it. So it's seen as actually a pro-social thing that if prevents you spreading it, and if we're all prevented spreading it to each other a little bit and protected a little bit, it just damps it down. And it has been a long evidence trawl to get to this point, but one could also say that those countries where people habitually do wear masks a lot, or a lot of that's in East Asia, do seem to have done well. It's not possible to link it really directly, but it does seem to be accepted now that there is a role for them, and if we're all wearing them, it will actually improve things a bit for everyone. So, and obviously, especially for those most vulnerable. So it's a pro-social thing that might protect you a bit as well if you're wearing it. So do wear them now.
Thank you, Bruce. And this isn't actually one of the questions, but it has occurred to me that should people working in shops, should they wear masks? Is it better to wear face masks? I'm thinking also about perhaps customers who might find it difficult to be communicated with if the person in the shop is wearing some sort of mask.
I think there's a common sense element to it. One needs to live. The more you're wearing the mask, the more you'll get the benefit. At all times, do the things that you can do to make the most difference. But if you need, if someone needs to lip read, if there's a genuine reason why you can't wear a mask, or take it off for a time, and if you do that, then minimize the time for which you're in face-to-face close proximity to someone. So to me, it's a bit about, common sense. Do all the things that you can, and if you really have to, make your own thing for a period of time, then minimize it and do all the other things you can do to avoid transmitting the virus.
Thank you, Bruce. And I guess perhaps just sticking on this theme, there has been some talk about fines. People are in shops without wearing a mask. I don't know quite who would be enforcing that. Perhaps that's a question for Suzanne.
Yes, we're still waiting to hear. The police obviously don't want to enforce it, and they've suggested that environmental health should be the enforcement body. We haven't got the resources really to be able to do that proactively. So, it's likely that, we will be doing it the usual way, by trying to encourage businesses to make them aware of the reasons for doing it, rather than by trying to do it by enforcement. But yes, that's it. It is a difficult question. And what you were saying earlier, Dina, about, can they do it a different way so that people can see them? Well, obviously, in many shops, in particular in the retail sector, it's a bit easier where you can have screens at checkouts. So you've got that physical barrier and you don't need to wear a face mask. So that can be a help. Some licensed premises have put screens up at bars, although, we try and encourage them to do table service. A lot of bars and restaurants are doing ordering by app, so that you use the app to do your food and drink order, and then you can pay for it as well by the app, and then the waitress or bartender or whatever will bring over your meal and your drinks to your table, therefore minimising the risk of spread of COVID.
Thank you, Suzanne. And actually that leads me to another question, which is about the responsibility, you know, on both the restaurateur, but also on customers who might be consuming takeaway deli items, but still perhaps on the, you know, on a cafe's own terrace and that sort of thing. So who has the responsibility for cleaning, spacing, you know, just sort of keeping things as they should be? And it might be useful to perhaps touch on the provision of toilets as well.
Okay, well, certainly with food businesses, if they are providing tables and chairs, and obviously this will have bigger impact as if the pavement licenses are brought in, the owner of the premises has the responsibility to look after those tables and chairs. It's their responsibility to clean them and to sanitize them. And they also have a duty to collect the contact details of the customers who are sitting at those tables and chairs. I know that you know, some proprietors think that you know, they can serve a takeaway. People can then go and sit elsewhere within the town or the city centre, on a park bench or one of the council benches. So why do they have to take responsibility for their tables and chairs? Well, I'm afraid they do. And you know, because there is an expectation that they are placing them there for people to use for that purpose, and therefore they have to keep it clean and they have to sanitize between customers. I think there's been a suggestion as well that, you know, in order to try and prevent goals in the city centre, you know, if people do have leftover food, that it try and cover it over. Perhaps some of the proprietors could provide an additional plate for that to be done. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people and a lot of premises are actually serving it in more takeaway containers, which has caused a few issues, obviously, then with the additional litter and refuse in the city centre. So, but yes, if you know, people should be encouraged to take their food waste and to place it into a bin. And if you are providing tables and chairs and a takeaway service, there is an expectation that you should provide a bin to collect the additional waste. And yeah, oh yeah, again, with those tables and chairs, you must remember, as I say, about social distancing. You know, tables and chairs should be at least 2 meters away, or 1 meter plus some additional precautions. And if you are providing, if you do have toilets, then they should be available for your customers to use, and you should have some form of stewarding or management of those toilets to make sure that people aren't queuing for them, and it is your responsibility to make sure that they are cleaned on a regular basis in order to prevent the spread of infection.
Thank you, Suzanne. I fear I'm going to be sticking with you actually for the next question as well, which is, so we've had a question that came in on the from the webinar, one of the webinar viewers, which is around what happens if people won't give their details, you know, when they either book a table or if they arrive and, you know, buy things there and then. Is there an obligation for restaurateurs and cafes to actually take down these details, and what happens if people won't give their details?
The proprietor can only do their best. They can only try to get those details, and they should make every endeavour to do so. But if the customer refuses to provide them, they have the right to turn them away if they so wish. But we wouldn't want them to be put into a confrontational situation. I think that's why some premises have gone with the app solution, because that way you are capturing the details without physically having to write it down. And, you know, if people are paying by card, which is another thing that we would expect rather than cash payments, again, we would have some way of perhaps tracing people if they have used their card for payment. But I think, you know, the idea is to make sure that your staff understand why it is so important to collect the contact details and can pass that information on to the customers. It's there for their safety and for that of their family as well, because if they've come into contact with somebody who may be positive, they might be carrying it, they might be asymptomatic, which means that they're not showing any symptoms themselves, you know, and they could be passing it on to their loved ones. So, you know, we're not doing it to be heavy-handed, we're doing it for their protection, and it's to get that message across to people.
Absolutely. I don't know, Bruce, did you want to come in and just add any additional comment? So obviously, you know, this information would really help in being able to track people down if there's an outbreak.
I would like to think that if you get that explanation that Suzanne gives, most people would want to do that. I mean, there will always be a few, so I can't think of a polite word, but antisocial people who won't. And then, you know, if people really want to give fake addresses, what can you do about that either? You can't, you know, you can't make it absolutely sure. But I think most people, whenever I've been anywhere and they've been taking, I haven't seen it questioned.
Okay, thank you very much, Bruce. And I'm really glad that Linda Dean has been able to join us. I'll ask you to introduce yourself in a moment, Linda. But what I wanted to ask, because there's been a number of questions around road closures, including questions about the anti-terrorism measures. So it'd be useful maybe if you could just give a quick sort of recap of the rationale for closing certain roads, and also around the anti-terrorism measures that we know are going to be coming in place, that, you know, we've been directed to put in place, and this was significantly before COVID-19 had shown its face anywhere. So Linda, I'll just pass over to you, please.
Thank you, Dina, and apologies for being late. I was on a PD&S panel discussing reopening, so apologies everyone for being late to this one. So with regards to the access restriction, the roads with the access restrictions, which are York Street, Cheap Street, Westgate Street, Upper Borough Walls, and Milsom Street is a bus gate. And Keynsham High Street is also now closed. They are closed between 10 AM and 6 PM. The decision based on the closures in Bath in particular, particularly York Street and the Cheap Street sort of loop round to Upper Borough Walls, was based on the advice from our colleagues within counter-terrorism. It's not to say that we're under any particular threat at all, but a number of years ago we did do a survey, and Bath has been identified, and unsurprisingly, as a crowded space. And being a crowded space, we have a duty to protect those members of the public and those people that work and live in the city, that whilst they are going about their business. The consultation on that was due to start just as we were about to go into lockdown. That's been halted, and that will be picked up again probably in August and into September, because conscious of holidays during August. When discussing the access restrictions in the city centre, we did contact our colleagues within the police and counter-terrorism, and they have issued quite a lot of guidance. And just because it's no longer a crowded place in the nature of what it was pre-COVID. It's still an identified area where people are queuing, and potentially because of the nature of the shops, etc., and businesses in that area will be queuing into the highway. And queues of people are obviously a good target for anybody that with ill intent. So hence, we made the decision to put the access restrictions in place in those roads. Milsom Street is a busy, or has been traditionally a busy road, and we didn't want to prevent the park and ride buses and other public transport buses that come down to come down. So we are trialling it as a bus gate currently. And Keynsham High Street was being trialled as a one-way system, and the Keynsham Town Centre, Town Council actually voted a few weeks ago to temporarily close it between 10 AM and 6 PM. Again, that is being trialled in those areas. With regards to the permanent, just going back to York Street and Cheap Street, we will be putting in alternative barriers temporarily, rather than the crowd barriers that are currently there. We have them on order. We're waiting for them to arrive, that will go in on those access points between 10 AM and 6 PM. This isn't the permanent solution. You know, we are not a long way off the permanent solution. We have a design concept that we've been working with planning, with heritage bodies on a permanent solution, but these are temporary for now. And the road closures that are in are a temporary road closure. They are to the permanent scheme, and that will be subject to a full consultation. Does that help, Dina?
Thank you very much, Linda. Yes, I think that is very helpful. So bearing in mind that we're coming up to the last 10 minutes of this webinar, I just thought it might be useful to touch on some of the other comments that have come in through questions, both pre this webinar and also during the webinar as well. So there's been several points raised about clever, inventive, creative stuff, particularly one good suggestion, actually, well, you might think it's a good suggestion, is for a new market in Milsom Street. And I'd just be useful to get maybe the panel's views on, that kind of innovative new concept. What are going to be can that happen? Is that something, are there reasons why it can't happen? I don't know whether Rob's got any sort of insight into that, or I can see Linda wants to come in first off, so I'll bring Linda straight in.
I'll pick that up, because my day job is events, so I can pick that up. Most certainly is something that we want to look at. Those people on the call who know the artisan market in the Bath Abbey Quarter Market, we're working with them. Queen Square, where the artisan market is not appropriate at the moment, but we're working with them on alternative locations on Kingston Parade, Abbey Gate Street as an alternative, but still allowing that to go ahead, socially distanced. The government are encouraging more outdoor markets and are permitted development when the new planning and business bill goes through the House of Lords. I think it's under that one, Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, will allow us to allow more outdoor markets. And Milsom Street, yes, is a great place to have an outdoor market. We just need to work through those, what that would look like, how we can facilitate it between the 10 AM and 6 PM, or do we put in a longer road closure? But yeah, most definitely. And one of the things I certainly want to do with Milsom Street is to talk to the traders about what else we can do to make it a more attractive street. I'm very conscious that the bollards, etc., that are there at the moment are unattractive, and we want to change them, but I want to work with the traders on what that looks like.
And I would imagine that some of the sort of bustle that perhaps traders have been used to has actually been caused perhaps by vehicles going up actually going down the road. I was going to say up and down the road, but obviously they only go one way.
Yeah, it's a very busy street on a normal. Oh, sorry, my battery is about to die. So sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No. It's just constant, isn't it? Webinars. Yeah, very conscious that it was a very busy thoroughfare and through route, and we want to make it more attractive. Most definitely.
Absolutely, because I am aware that there's a bit of a common perception that that if an area, if you can't drive your car down it and you can't park there, that then the businesses in that area will be less successful, and I don't know if anybody on the call has any views or any evidence that says one way or another.
There's a fair body of evidence to actually suggest where there isn't vehicular traffic, dwell time is longer. So that can actually benefit businesses from the studies that is out there. It's not completely conclusive. Clearly, you do need access, and it's dependent on the retail area itself. You'll have destination shopping, and then you'll have, where people are doing their 10-minute shop, and it'll be more, your daily type of shopping. So I think each area needs to respond to that, what the retail offer is, and then ensure that shoppers and local residents can access that accordingly. So Milsom Street, you're looking at, that's quite a high-end retail area, and therefore dwell time you'd expect to be longer. So that area does lean more towards the temporary closures and making the road itself more attractive.
Thank you, Rob. And I know that the BID are also doing some work on the footfall in various parts of the city as well. So we'll also be able to build up a body of evidence about whether that perception is absolutely accurate in our city, and I hope that then can be used in perhaps other towns across the area too. So I've got two bits of information that have come up, so I'm just quickly having a look at chat. So this is from Alison Herbert, actually from the BID, from Bath BID, which states actually it's fairly clear from the footfall figures around Saw Close that the combination of improved public realm and pedestrianisation enhances footfall. So I think that's really helpful to hear. I'm really sorry, but we're running out of time on this webinar. I know we haven't answered absolutely all the questions, but hopefully it's given everybody a taste of the information and guidance that we can provide. And if you've got specific questions, then please contact us and we will endeavour to get those answers. Those questions that we've already had in, if we haven't answered, we'll make sure that you get an answer to that too. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to quickly ask our panelists if they've got any last comments. So if I start with Bruce, perhaps have you got any final thoughts on this issue, on how we can help our retail and hospitality sector?
Well, I certainly like the idea of the outside the Milsom Street thought, because we know that although one still has to be careful, things done outside are lower risk. So from a pure public health point of view, if one can maintain distancing and be outside, so much the better. But no, other than that, just good luck to everyone with your efforts. And as I say, I think people are really being imaginative and thorough in how they're distancing. The number of shops I've seen which have, restricting numbers of people, one-way systems, good signage is very encouraging. So I'm hopeful. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Kath?
Yes, to echo Bruce's comments, we haven't seen really significant issues out there in terms of compliance. Everybody is approaching this with a really good attitude. So thank you for that. And I guess my message is, continue to come and talk to us. about what you want to do. Just picking up the point about markets, I've had a couple of market organisers contact me who are concerned that if they pay their street trading fee for their market and then for whatever reason it gets cancelled because we have another spike or something like that, or a local outbreak, they'll lose those fees. What we've agreed is that we'll credit them. So if they can't operate their market for whatever reason and want to postpone it and reorganise it for a future date, we'll credit those fees so they won't have to pay again in the future. So that's another example of where we're trying to be supportive and helping people out.
Thank you, Kath. Suzanne.
Yes, thank you, Dina. Yes, just to say, to remind everybody, please don't be complacent, because, you know, we have got low incidence of COVID in Baines. We want to keep it that way. And by doing so, you know, hopefully we will be returning to normality a lot quicker than some other parts of the country. But it's down to the hard work of businesses, and we do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Rob, have you got any last thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, it's just to really thank everyone for their time today, and I hope it's been of value. What I would say is we do have a whole gamut of business support options available to you. Please do engage with us, talk to us about any training requirements or any issues. We can be responsive, so if we can't help you directly, or if we don't have a program in place, if the demand's there, we can adapt to your needs. So don't be a stranger, talk to our team, and we'll do our best to help.
Thank you, Rob. And Linda, any last comments from you?
Yeah, it's just thank everyone for their patience. I appreciate that, you know, everything is working at pace, and we are trying to do the best that we can with the, and I know money's a dirty word a lot of the time, but with the money that we have available to be able to support you. And a bit like Rob, you know, please come and talk to us. Don't, you know, be frightened to come and talk to us. I might not have the answers and I might not be able to address your particular concern straight away, but we really do want to work with businesses to help you. We all want everybody to succeed in a safe way, and nobody wants a second spike.
Thank you, Linda. I mean, I think we all recognise these are tough times, but if we remain responsible, if we all work together, carry on talking to each other, you know, we will get through this. So I'd like to end by thanking all my panelists for sharing your expertise and wisdom with us. And I'd also like to thank all those that have attended this webinar. I am aware that not everybody who wanted to be here today has been able to attend. So this webinar is being recorded and it will be available on the Council's YouTube channel. And all the links on the slides will also be available on the channel too. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. And I hope to see you all at a future webinar. And in the meantime, good luck with everything. Thank you.